Hello. So I'd like to give you a quick overview of a global outlook on all of these policies we've heard today about the French national strategy. Just heard a great talk just now on Canadian. What I wanted to do was frame something a little bit different, and that is take a global view. What is common among these various strategies? And if you had to build one, how would you go about building it? So I took an approach to basically, if one were an alien and visiting Earth for the first time, and asked about our various national quantum policies, what would you tell them? So I want to give a summary of, I think, what are the national quantum policies globally, what are the elements within each of those policies, and then I'll talk about something that the World Economic Forum published. Jack Hittery and I wrote the foreword on that document, and then touch a little bit on, of course, responsible development and values. So I think each of these things might be interesting, and to look at it from this global view. So the first thing to look at is the global landscape, and then what constitutes an ecosystem. What are examples of partnerships and the quantum journey, how people get started on that. So the international strategy landscape, as of January this year, there were 24 nations that have a coordinated national strategy. So there are about 208 nations on Earth. So, you know, you're looking at something a little more than 10%. An additional 12 countries have significant national-led initiatives, but no national strategy that their legislatures have approved, or parliaments. And there are 14 nations that don't have a strategy, but they participate in quantum partnerships significantly. Those are primarily here in the EU. Here's a list, 22 of them. You can see some of them that were early starters, including the United States and Australia, France here, but also some recent strategies that have been published, such as that in Canada, Brazil, South Africa. Two more, Denmark and South Korea. Here's a world map, and the details here are not as important as the fact that if it is red, then those are countries that do have a strategy or a strategy in development. Australia would now be a red country, since this was published by CFAR in 2021. So it is 3 years old. Something jumps out, and that is that there's a bunch of gray on this map. And those gray areas really are focused here in this continent and in this continent. And that is something that, from a market development standpoint, speaks to large potential opportunity if, in fact, these nations can engage in quantum technology. So that is really kind of interesting when you look at this, and then look at it in the context of who is receiving funding underneath their national strategies. So number one is, the world over, national strategies are really critical to the formation of a technology. I'm from IBM, but there's no question that the technologies, how they got started in the United States, were really supported by the Department of Energy, and it was super important to the initiation of our technology and our industry, the research, early stage research. it's important that when governments set a national strategy that they follow through with those plans. And so far, I'm happy to report that all the nations that I listed up here really have followed through with their national strategies and funding. But as I pointed out, there are large policy gaps that are in Latin America and in Africa. And those countries, with the exception of Brazil, are going to need to take these lessons from our basic blueprint that I'm going to talk to you about to build their strategies, and hopefully this provides for them a helpful tool. If you look at the quantum market that we see emerging according to the Boston Consulting Group, this is at maturity going to be a tremendous market of something like $500 billion. That shouldn't be shocking given the amount of money that you see within the digital market today. Over the last 6-7 decades, we've watched that market grow, and we absolutely see that same opportunity in quantum computing. Now, this speaks to quantum computing value. You can see that the nations on the right-hand side are making large investments, and on the bar charts on the left, Boston Consulting Group wanted to try to get in their report a certain feel for what might be the big areas that emerge and the markets that will emerge from them. Those ecosystems that each of those countries is either establishing a policy or investing in, or both, have basically 4 common components. They have access to quantum computers, workforce development, they have an active research and development program, and they're also encouraging adoption by industry. Here is the same 4 elements that are put into a graphic that we use with access, research, workforce, and economic development. And around those, we list what are the benefits to a nation if, in fact, they develop a robust ecosystem. One of the things that's important to note is that each quadrant of this ecosystem is really important to pay attention to. And I think in most cases, the nations have done a really good job at supporting each of these 4, as we heard in the last talk on the economic and research and development side. You'll also hear about workforce. Each nation might emphasize one quadrant, but all 4 are in play. I want to talk about the World Economic Forum and what we did in Davos this year. Here is a map of all the global investments in quantum that are being made through these national quantum programs. Now, again, establishing many of the quadrants, but we also see an emerging issue, and that is these investments are quite unequal. As I showed on the earlier map, there are large areas where there are no quantum strategies and no or very little quantum investment. This could emerge into a fairly significant quantum divide. And that was something that we saw in the digital development over the last 3 decades, where there's a digital divide. There are still 2 billion people on Earth that do not have access to the internet or tools to access the internet. And that's shocking as we look at that. But it stands to reason that a quantum divide is not beneficial to them, and it's not beneficial to a company like those companies that are here today. So it's important to get this right and to avoid the formation of the kind of quantum divide that could emerge. So to try to head that off and to redirect this, we created a quantum economy blueprint and published it in the World Economic Forum. You can download this. It's available online. And it's a framework that really enables the national regional strategies, outlines the various tools that they would need in order to put together a good strategy. So what constitutes a good strategy and what would be in that strategy? Well, it really comes down to what we think are 9 themes and 7 core values. That the themes are around everything that, you know, our prior speakers have talked about, which is open innovation and access to hardware and creating a workforce and cybersecurity, all of the things that would be in common sense. And then in addition, what we have is we took the core values of basically open access, transparency, adhering to the rule of law, honoring intellectual property rights, things that in our Western world we really do value so that companies can in fact benefit. So you can take a closer look in that document about how we're mapping these building blocks, looking at each of these themes. And when you take a look at governance, you take obviously that set of core values and propagate it through responsible innovation, and also on the same token, responsible regulation. And finally, there's an element of stability that we want to emphasize. So we took a look at several case studies. We looked at the UK, India, and Denmark. And what we did is extrapolated from those and showed how each of those national strategies really did support and feed into these core values and these themes. So this is a document that you can take a look at, and then a country in those big gray areas could grab a hold of that and build a strategy that we think would be comprehensive, reasonable, and equitable. It also is a blueprint for countries that may want to revamp or renew their strategy. And of course, which the UK has done, the United States is in the process of reauthorizing our national quantum initiative. And I think that's a good thing to do periodically. So in conclusion, while there's no one size fits all, there certainly is a framework and a set of rules and elements that people would do well to follow. And it's really not necessary to reinvent the wheel. With a blueprint like this, hopefully we provide some tools for policymakers so they can really look at the usability of that framework. So thank you all for your attention. I think I'm out of time now, but I can take a question or two, or I'll be available in the back of the room afterward. So thank you all very much.